Hello, welcome to an adventure. Today has indeed been an adventure. Just getting things set up today took 100% of the time, and but I'm here, and we're gonna look at some great materials today. I'm glad that you all have joined me. I'm still readjusting things, but hopefully you're having a good Wednesday, a good midweek. I got here to the studio room in the library today, and it was a wreck. Nothing was where it belonged, and so I had to start by moving things out of the center of the room and building my entire set from scratch, as though it was the first time I had ever set up. Far enough as to, like, the camera above me was about a half foot that way from where it normally is. So it took a little bit of time. And now I'm warm. But just give me 1 second here and we will get started with our usual start. I do not know if the mods will be joining us today or not. It's mid-semester time and it's been rather busy for everybody. Not even morning there. But you said good morning. It's not morning here either. Hang on, I need to make the chat just a little bit bigger, because I can't read it. All right, there we go. Now I can see the chat, and I can see everything I need to see. Anyway, I'm actually gonna give me 1 second because I don't have this ready yet. Like I said, it took me the entire hour that I normally have in the room before I go live just to get the physical set in place. And this isn't like really much of a set. It's like camera and lights that are usually just there. A couple tables in the middle, and then connecting up cords. And it was a lot of work today. But what I don't have is, the finding aid for today is in a weird spot, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I need to grab the link so that I'm prepared to share it on screen when I get there. All right, here goes. I'm gonna do screen share and then take a sip of water before I read. Oh no. Let me guess. You all don't have any music playing in your ears. I believe you should be able to hear me. Do you hear the music? Because you have music. Okay, so that means something's weird. You've got analog A audio, both of the HDMI audios. Where is the camera? No signal there. Hang on, I'm trying to solve it. Okay, there we go. It's just plugged into the wrong port, apparently. I'm floating in a void. Like I said, nothing was set up when I got in the room. The room was completely dismantled, and I had to set up from scratch with not enough time to do so. Imagine having to load in a play every time you perform. If you've ever done theater. Anyway, we are here. We got it. We've got part of it. That's weird. That's really weird. The colors are completely wrong. We're teaching a big lecture classes? Kinda. Why are the colors all wrong? Are the colors wrong on... I'm not gonna linger on it because we can read it. Okay, they're not wrong. It's just on the monitor that they're wrong. So I will give up on that. I don't even need to have that. Oh boy. All right. Wow. Right, so we're starting today, as we normally do, with the Land Acknowledgement and Labor Recognition from Virginia Tech. Slightly, possibly even more salient to today's stream, because today, this is the first stream that I'm doing during Native American Heritage Month here in the United States. And the contents of the collection that we're looking at today are also in that realm. So here goes. Virginia Tech acknowledges that we live and work on the Tudelo and Monacan people's homeland, and we recognize their continued relationships with their lands and waterways. We further acknowledge that legislation and practices, like the Morrill Act of 1862, enabled the Commonwealth of Virginia to finance and found Virginia Tech through the forced removal of Native nations from their lands, both locally and in Western territories. We understand that honoring Native peoples without explicit material commitments falls short of our institutional responsibilities. Through sustained, transparent, and meaningful engagement with the Tudelo and Monacan peoples and other Native nations, we commit to changing the trajectory of Virginia Tech's history by increasing Indigenous student, staff, and faculty recruitment and retention, diversifying course offerings, and meeting the growing needs of all Virginia tribes, and supporting their sovereignty. We must also recognize that enslaved Black people generated revenue and resources used to establish Virginia Tech and were prohibited from attending until 1953. Through inclusive VT, the institutional and individual commitment to UTPROSIM, that I may serve, in the spirit of community, diversity, and excellence, we commit to advancing a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive community. So, important to pay attention there. Increasing Indigenous representation among students, staff, faculty, not just getting them in the door, but also keeping them. Basically creating this, making this a welcoming space where they want to be, and not just going out and saying, hey, we need you for our diversity numbers. Diversifying course offerings, meeting the needs of Virginia tribes. And the reason I'm going back and mentioning little bits of it is the papers we have today actually touch directly on federal recognition of Virginia Indigenous tribes, Indigenous nations. So that'll be interesting, at least for me to look at, because I haven't gotten to see these yet. We just got them. So let's take a look at the finding aid for this collection. Now, if you're used to the finding aids, and hang on one second, I need to actually post this. I just remembered that apparently I have no mods today, and so I need to post these myself. All right, so there's a link where you can find the finding aid yourself if you're interested. for some reason, and we have not been able to figure out why, this finding aid for this newly processed collection does not want to publish to our normal finding aid site. So it is available on the internet, but less discoverable because we can't get it to show up on the site. This is the public interface of the tool that we use to actually write the finding aids, which has all of the information in it, just it's not where we direct people when we tell them to go and look at the finding aid. Question. No. Okay, never mind. Brain. Anyway, so what we have, and actually this is linked out to specifically what we're looking at today, which is Series 1 about the Monacan Indian Nation. But let's talk about the collection itself first. The Reverend Baldwin Lloyd collection. Nothing like watching a new streamer figure it out live. Iron Trout, I'm not a new streamer though, but although I guess, yeah, like I've been doing this for almost 2 years. It's just every single week is different because I never know what I'm gonna find when I walk into the room. In fact, one week I couldn't even use the room because physical plant people decided to install the hanging mount and sound panels and stuff without telling us that they were going to. And so like an hour before stream, I found out I couldn't use the room, which was, I took some points of stress that day. If you want to see how I reacted on that one, that is the Sweet and Low and Butterbuds episode that you can find on the YouTube, the University Library's YouTube channel. Anyway, the collection we're looking at today is, so let's see, this collection contains personal papers from Reverend Lloyd, such as correspondence, certificates, research materials, and photographs. It also includes records of his work with the Monacan Indian Nation through St. Paul's Church at Bear Mountain, his involvement with the Appalachian People's Service Organization, and community projects such as the Village Center in Blacksburg, Virginia. The bulk of the materials in the collection are undated, but would have likely been created between the 1960s and the early 2000s, with the bulk dating from the 1960s to the 1980s. Now, the items that we're going to look at today, I believe, are mostly from the 90s to the 2000s. I'm just going to zoom this in just a little bit so you all can see the text a little bit better, especially if you're on little screens. So the majority of the material in this collection is in English. Some hymns in the collection are in Lakota, Ojibwe, and Dakota. So biographical. Who was Reverend Lloyd, and why does he have a bunch of material about the Monacan Indian Nation? Reverend Baldwin Lloyd was born August 1st, 1928, and died on October 11th, 2019, was an influential member of the Episcopal Church in Southwest Virginia. He was involved in international mission work, St. Paul's Episcopal Indian Mission, and the Appalachian People's Service Organization. And regarding language that we will encounter, I'm just going to say, boy, do I miss my Stream Deck when I'm doing this here at work. All right. There may be language that we encounter that is offensive today, offensive regionally, or simply just out of date or inaccurate. We are looking at unedited historical materials that have not been looked at ahead of time. I haven't gone through and vetted what we're going to look at. We're going to pull out a box, we're going to pull out documents from it and start looking at them. If we encounter things, I generally let them stay on screen. But as I am reading it, I will adjust language as needed. Regarding terminology specifically about the historically marginalized community that we will be looking at today, there are multiple terms that are used by the community itself, whether that be Indian, Indian American, Native American, Indigenous, and when referring to their communities, the terms that show up are both, well, you get community, you get nation, and you get tribe. And so generally with all of those terms, I will default to whatever term is being used generally, unless it's being used in a derogatory way. So with the Monacan Indian Nation, they use Monacan Indian Nation. So they use the term Indian. Here at Virginia Tech, we have an American Indian Studies program. Here, it makes reference to St. Paul's Episcopal Indian Mission. That is the title of their mission. Therefore, it's not really being used in a derogatory way, and I'm going to use that term. Generally, for my own personal use, and if I was writing about, if I was writing about these communities in a general way, I would be using the term Indigenous. But when you get down to specifics, the most respectful thing to do is to use the term that the group uses for themselves. So just wanted to put that out there as we're getting started, because we've already had a term that some people find offensive, Indian, show up in the text that we're looking at. Historical language and terminology that may be offensive to Native and First Nations people. Yes, specifically. All right, so yeah, we read, the abstract is the same as the scope and content note. In the overall papers, there are 3 series. There's the Monacan Indian Nation papers that are records of the Reverend's work at the mission at St. Paul's Church at Bear Mountain. Newsletters, information about a rehabilitation program, information about the federal acknowledgement of Virginia Indian tribes, and educational resources used at the mission. Series 2, 3, 4, and 5, I did not pull for today, so if you're looking through here, it's just the stuff in Series 1 that I physically have. So that's, if you see something in Series 1 that you want to see, let me know. I'll get it on screen. If you see something in Series 2 through 5 that you want to see, let me know and I'll make a note and we'll look at it on another stream. So the Appalachian People's Service Organization and Mountaintop Removal, I don't have. Southwest Virginia series, I don't have with me. Personal papers, I don't have with me. And Series 5 is apparently restricted and not available for public use. Hi, Lord Portico! Thank you. And there were some items in the collection that were removed and then cataloged as part of the rare books collection. All right. And yeah, so processing of it just finished in June. Anyway, on this page, over on the right, under Collection Organization, is where you'll find the box and folder list. So you can open that up here. And in fact, if you follow the bit.ly in the finding aid link, it takes you directly to this page, which is the descriptive information just about Series 1. And then under here we have Subseries A, which is education about Christianity, as well as Subseries B, which is the St. Paul's Bear Mountain Episcopal Church. Under those, you have specific items. And then you also have these additional folders here, like photographs, federal acknowledgement of Virginia Indian tribes, tribal meeting agendas, etc. So I know it has taken me forever to get through covering what's included in the collection we're looking at today. How about we actually start looking at some of the stuff? Oh, I was so calm before I got up here and discovered that I had to move at breakneck speeds just to get the stream running today. I'm going to switch to the document focus. I don't have any documents quite ready yet. Just give me a moment and I will. I don't know why I said it that way. Come here, box. Archival box. Here we go. Yeah. All right. You may have heard of banker's boxes. That is what this is. Banker's box. It'll show off better on Facecam. I know I've probably talked about this before. Orders the stream hamsters to run faster. So this is an archival box, an archival storage box. Ours, I have no problem showing you. Hashtag not sponsored. Ours is made by Hollinger Metal Edge. There are other companies that make acid-free storage boxes. But yeah, this is one of our standard size boxes. Inside, we have folders, many, many folders that our wonderful student Kat organized and arranged and described for us. So we're going to look through here and see what we find. Let's see, folder 1 is Celebrations of Life. I actually don't know. I don't know the actual physical organization, which is one thing that I lose with using this finding aid. If I was physically downstairs at my desk, I would be able to go into the cataloging system and have a slightly different view that would help me figure things out, but I'm not. So from here, I can't because the IP address will be wrong and it won't let me in. Guide for church leaders, photographs and artifacts. I think photographs and artifacts, definitely something we want to look at. Deacons and Discernment. Federal Acknowledgement of Virginia Indian Tribes. I want to look at that one. The Jamestown, Virginia Covenant. I'm curious there. Tribal meeting agendas. We'll look at the certificates. And like I said, if you see something on there that you want me to make sure I get to, let me know. I'm just pulling a few to start. Indigenous songs and hymns, conversational Lakota. Sure. Okay. There's more, but we'll start with what I've pulled out so far. Nope. One would think I'd be used to this by now. I tried to push the box just forward on the table, and then I couldn't see the chat. This is only the third stream where I've had chat directly in front of me. I swear, I am much more experienced at this than it seems. I'm going to start with the certificates, if that's all hunky-dory with you. As you can see, we have an acid-free folder. It is in a tan color. Doesn't have to be, generally is. This color, often referred to as manila, but not all manila folders are acid-free. I don't know why I'm like, I don't know why I'm quite as lectury today about archival practice as I am, but it doesn't hurt. And indeed is part of the goals of the stream, is to let people know about archive stuff. So I wanted to start with these because, again, I don't know Reverend Lloyd's ethnic origin. I do not believe that he was a member of the Monacan Indian Nation. And in fact, I get the impression that he was a white man. I don't know, though. Maybe when we look at the photographs, we will find out. But also, you can't really know from those, so we'll see. But these certificates were issued by people for his work with the Indigenous community. So first we have Certificate of Recognition for Outstanding Commitment, presented to B. Lloyd for leadership respecting Native American and campus diversity, presented on 28 April 1996 by the Coalition for Community, New River Valley, Virginia. So Virginia Tech is located in the New River Valley. But the one that I wanted to most look at, and the one that is the only piece in here I had previously seen in detail, since I used this as the promotional image for today's episode, is a certificate of appreciation presented to Reverend B. Lloyd, to all who shall see these presents, greetings. For exceptional service, exemplary. Wow. I'm stumbling over the words. One moment. For exceptional service, exemplary performance, and Native American pride and dedication to our tribe, we, the members located in West Virginia, honor you as a loyal and dedicated friend to all Monacans. Your untiring efforts and long hours on behalf of our nation has been the contributing factor in the success of the tribe. We can always count on you. And the signatories here, I have those names. One moment. I forgot that they were difficult for me to make out, but I have already parsed them, and so if you give me 1 second, I will let you know what they are. Unless you can make them out and want to post it in chat. Where are my notes? I'm navigating folders to get to the document. Hold, please. What is it doing? Thank you. Wow. My apologies, everybody. I was clicking on the thing and it kept clicking on the one above it. This is apparently not my day. It is signed by John Belvin, Pansy Gibson, and Bernard Belvin, and issued October 7th, 1997. And you can see the seal of the Monacan Indian Nation there on the certificate. So important enough and respected enough by the Monacan Indian Nation to have been issued this certificate in '97, thanking him for all of his work and support for their nation, which I think is important to start with, especially if, as I suspect, he was not a member of the nation, and I wanted to start, at least for stream purposes, by noting that they did appreciate him quite a lot. So this isn't, as with some other indigenous archival collections, this is not a bunch of material that was collected about them without participation or involvement. This is material that was created through his work with the tribe, and that work was appreciated by them. So we have a folder here, Photographs and Artifacts, which is photographs is why I've got the gloves on now. So, I don't know what all's going to be here. Looks like we're starting with Mitakuye Oyasin, All My Relations, Mein Ganze Ligena. And we've got the colors present, the white, the red, the black, the yellow. Those are all part of the Monacan Indian Nation seal, but then we do have a Jewish star. And I had seen inside of one of these other folders, and I think it's relevant, so I'm pulling it. Because I believe I had seen something in the Celebration of Life folder that was similar to this. Maybe I didn't. Well then, let's find out what it means. This is an exploration. This is an adventure. I'm going to type it in. Mitakuye Oyasin. And there's a Wikipedia article about this phrase. Mitakuye Oyasin, all are related, is a phrase from the Lakota language. It reflects the worldview of interconnectedness held by the Lakota people of North America. This concept and phrase is expressed in many Yankton Sioux prayers, as well as by ceremonial people in other Lakota communities. In English, it translates as all my relatives, so all my relations, similar, or all my relations. It's a prayer of oneness and harmony with all forms of life, other people, animals, birds, insects, trees and plants, and even rocks, rivers, mountains, and valleys. Yeah, so that, and then Mein Ganze Ligena? I'm pretty sure I spelled it right. Translate. It thought I was close, but apparently I am possibly not reading it right. If you just go Mein Ganze Ligen, it is my whole league from German. I'm not certain, but this definitely seems like an L to me. Anyway, that is a nice piece of needlepoint there with a lovely sentiment. Let's see some of these photos here. we have a group photo. And I can zoom in a little bit here. Wow, I did not know that I'd be able to use a touchpad through my Archival gloves, but apparently I can. I don't know if there's a label. There's not. Group photo. This is the Reverend Baldwin Lloyd over here on the left. I presume these are members of the Monacan Indian Nation. Next to him, I know a few members of the nation, but I don't recognize anybody in the photo, so it's probably a bit before my time. It seems very 80s, the photo. Yeah, there's no date on it. Here we have the Sussex County Native American Celebration. This is more of a postcard than a photo. Apparently it was at the Sussex County Fairgrounds. I'm guessing this is Sussex County, New York? New Jersey. Red Hawk Native American Arts Council, Sussex County Native American Celebration, Sussex County Fairgrounds, Augusta, New Jersey. This was from 2009. Native American singing, dancing, food, crafts, educational programs, and more. Early 90s, late 80s, cars and 88 or 89 Oldsmobile. Oh yeah, I didn't even look at the car, but you're right. I was looking at their hairstyles and fashions, but you're right, it could be early 90s. So here we have another, an individual photograph of Baldwin Lloyd, the Reverend. I don't honestly know. I'm not super experienced with religion, per se. I know the Episcopal Church is the American version of the Church of England. And honestly, that's about all I know. I know that they are an order that sticks to some traditional forms of pomp and circumstance in their ceremonial worship. I don't know what kind of outreach they traditionally do. I know we have an extensive Episcopal set of records for the Southwest Virginia Episcopal Church, and that I believe they were the first church in this part of Virginia, the first Christian church founded after, well, I believe I would have to double check my records, but I know they are the first of something. I believe it is that they were the first church founded in Virginia, meaning after Virginia became an official colony with the name of Virginia. That they were the first one established, but I cannot recall for sure. I would have to double check that to be certain. You've been to one Episcopalian service, but it was a workout, kneel, stand, et cetera, but they seem to be one of the more accepting churches. Yes, I think I've been to maybe two, because when I lived in the Twin Cities, there were people in my life who wanted to experience various different worship services, and so we visited the Episcopal Church for a holiday service. We went to a Jewish synagogue for a holiday service. We went to a Quaker meeting at least once. And so I've been to various services, but I don't know a lot of details. I do know that I have seen the, I want to call it a scarf, but I'm sure it has another name, that is around his neck. His is slightly less rainbow than what I normally see. To me, it looks like it's probably trying to incorporate colors that were common in like native artwork, indigenous artwork, owing to his work with the indigenous people in the area. Oh, no, never mind. That's just the miscoloration of the screen I'm looking at. It is very rainbow, never mind. So it is the one that I've seen before that is a rainbow of colors. That screen made it look like it was all earth tones and that it was missing some of the like brighter reds and things like that. But no, they're definitely there when I actually look at the photo. So I should keep that in mind as I go forward, that the color is off on this monitor. Next, I have a photo here that is labeled Mary Ellen Lloyd and Sam Cooke and B. Lloyd. This is Homecoming of '97 by Joanne. Oh, wow. This is making me realize sort of exactly how long ago '97 was. Because I know Sam Cooke. I have worked with Sam Cooke on various things. Sam Cooke is the man here in the middle. He is the director of the American Indian Studies program here at Virginia Tech. And so then we've got Reverend Lloyd there, and Mary Ellen Lloyd, I'm assuming possibly spouse? Do Episcopalian reverends get to have spouses? I don't know this. But that would be my assumption based on age, but I suppose it could be sister? They do? Okay, so my guess would be spouse. Hi, Hannah. Sam looks a lot like one of your dad's best friends, only Sam is shorter. Yeah. He's a nice guy. I've met him. I've worked with him. A few more photos. Well, literally two. This next one is labeled B. Lloyd and Carl Meadows. This is a really nice photo. A nice black and white print. I honestly almost used this as the promotional photo for today's stream. I didn't because I don't know who Carl Meadows is and didn't want to like feature him quite that prominently without knowing who he is. So that's why I went with the certificate instead. I'm glad that there aren't pictures of you in the 90s hidden in some archive somewhere. Honestly, by the time, like, stuff from the 90s has hit the point where it's an identifiable time period fashion-wise, and the fashion choices don't seem quite so wrong as they did maybe 15 years ago. 80s fashion and like the permanent, the perms that all the women had and the bulky sweaters and things like that still kind of seem like they were bad fashion choices. But a lot of the 90s doesn't seem too bad anymore. But I don't particularly know the date of this photo. I'm not certain exactly who Carl Meadows is, but this is a really good photograph. And you can see sort of the indigenous patterning of the shirt that he's wearing here, and it has the nation's crest or seal on his hat. I get the impression from some of these photos that he really worked very closely and extensively with the Monacan Indian Nation. Lastly, I have a card. I don't need the glove for this one, and I I do need to zoom out a little bit. So a greeting card, we've got a lamb next to a buffalo, which until I said it and actually recognized what the animals were, I had not recognized the symbolism. Do you believe in miracles? We'll read some of this, I guess. An address and a phone number, and I don't know if they're still valid. Native American Rights Fund. So yeah, you know, I'm gonna need to where is my thing? I know. Nope, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. 55 minutes. Because I need to clip out the address. If I can. So I'm just jotting down the minute marker because I don't know how to drop a marker in the video itself, which I would do, but I don't remember how, given the array of options that are presently in front of my face. So I've got the thing. The buffalo is a baby. White buffalo is a native legend. Yep. Well, that, but also, okay, no, you're right. That is a buffalo. My brain processed this as a lamb and a buffalo, but you're right. It is a baby buffalo, not a lamb. It would have also had different symbolism if it had been a lamb, because the buffalo representing the indigenous people and the lamb representing the Christian Reverend whose papers these were, but no, you're right. It's a buffalo. So this is from Executive Director John E. Echohawk. Miracles do happen. Last year, NARF. I do not know. Two spots that I need to clip out. Native American Rights Fund sent a holiday card to our members with an image of the legendary white buffalo. Last year, on the eve of NARF's 25th anniversary, a white buffalo calf was born. So rare is a white buffalo that she was named Miracle. Thank you, Iron Trout. Thank you very much. I will not show the back of this card again. For many Native people, this birth is the sign they have been awaiting for generations. Traditionally, when a white buffalo appears, the people believe their prayers have been heard. The coming of the white buffalo signals a time of peace and unity, of abundance and plenty. Yet for most Native Americans, it is impossible to remember such a time. In fact, after centuries of poverty, cruelty, and betrayals at the hands of white oppressors, many would say that the real miracle is that Native Americans survived at all. But we have. And thanks to NARF and the generosity and commitment of people like you, it is no longer just a matter of survival for many tribes. For example, the restoration of stolen homelands has put the Catawba tribe of South Carolina on the road towards self-sufficiency. Winning federal recognition has qualified the Gayhead Wampanoag tribe of Massachusetts for vital government benefits and enabled them to launch a tribal fishing business. And after decades of deprivation, the Fort McDowell Indian community in Arizona can now control their most precious natural resource, water, and the future of their people. In fact, the support of caring NARF members like you has helped us win hundreds of cases that have changed thousands of lives, and the dozens more tribes NARF is now representing live daily with the hope that their lives, too, will again be blessed with abundance. But the reality is that many of these tribes are still living in grinding poverty with high rates of illiteracy and unemployment and the poorest health of any minority in the United States. For them, the promise of the white buffalo holds forth cannot be realized a moment too soon. The commitment of you and our other NARF members can help bring that promise closer to fulfillment. So in this special season of giving, please give as generously as you can. I assure you, to those Americans whose shattered lives you will be helping to piece back together, this gesture of partnership and unity among all Americans will be received in the spirit of the coming of the white buffalo. And the conditions described in here hold true today. I don't know how old the card is, because it is undated. But I am not showing the back of it on stream again. It's a lot of extra work to have to go in and clip out a couple seconds of video. But I will do it because it's my fault that it needs to happen in the first place. But that was everything that was in the Photographs and Artifacts folder. So, the next folder I have, Federal Acknowledgement of Virginia Indian Tribes. Virginia, in particular, it took a lot of work for indigenous tribes to gain federal recognition. And part of that is having enough membership that can prove lineage is somewhat challenging, given that they were forced out of the state, that people were forced westward. And so having enough membership to even apply to be officially recognized. And I don't know what all the requirements are, I just know that it has been difficult, but I believe at the moment there are 13 recognized Virginia tribes. So let's see what this information has to share about this today, and see what we can learn. Federal acknowledgement of the Virginia Indian Tribes. The Thomasina E. Jordan Virginia Indian Federal Recognition Bill seeks federal acknowledgement for 6 Virginia tribes: Chickahominy, Eastern Chickahominy, Monacan, Nansemond, Rappahannock, and Upper Mattapony. State versus federal gets complicated. Yeah, there are quite a few more state-recognized tribes than there are federal in Virginia. Background. All 6 tribes have state recognition and submitted supporting evidence of their history similar to the federal acknowledgement requirements in order to qualify for state-recognized Indian status. However, the state currently offers no special benefits to the members of the state-recognized Indian tribes. All 6 tribes have submitted their formal petitions to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, documenting their ability to meet the 7 mandatory criteria for federal recognition as part of these petitions. They have verified their descent from the indigenous people of Virginia. Wow. In 1999, the Virginia General Assembly passed a resolution, H.J. 754, memorializing Congress to grant federal recognition to the Virginia tribes. And we just got a raid from 16-Bit Eric. Hello, Eric. Hello, everybody from the League of Whimsy. It is great to have you join us today. I hope that you all had a good time over over on Eric's stream. What I saw of it before I got completely lost in trying to set up for stream today was great. But yeah, if you don't already follow 16-Bit Eric, you definitely should. Let me try this. Woo, got it. And yes, thank you for the shout out to 16-Bit Eric. If you don't already follow 16-Bit Eric, you should. He is an expert in all things tabletop role-playing games, and on the V2L Studios channel, we have occasionally done some actual plays there. So it is one of the content areas that the library supports with our streaming channel. So if you want to learn more about it, you should definitely follow Eric, because you'll learn a lot. Plus, the community over there is just grand. DJ Phoenix, it is good to see you. Leon Doodles, hello. Lord Portico, good to see you again. Or, thanks for popping back in. I am Puddleglum, hi. Geekouts, hi. Fluid Ann, hello. So today on stream, we are looking at the Monacan Indian Nation records from the Reverend Baldwin Lloyd collection. This is the stream I do on Wednesdays is a stream of materials from special collections and university archives at Virginia Tech. And so I'm here at the library at Virginia Tech, and we're looking at these materials that our student just finished processing in June. So this is the first time that they've really been available to look at. And the Reverend Baldwin Lloyd, I'm gonna find the photo here. Worked for quite a long time with the Monacan Indian Nation, which is one of Virginia's federally recognized indigenous tribes. And so as part of the work that he did with them, these materials were collected. And so I thought we would take a look at them today in honor of Native American Heritage Month, which started on Tuesday. Tuesday? Yeah, yesterday. Started yesterday. Wow. So feel free to hang out and listen in, or if you want to pop into chat, if you have commentary to add, or if you take a look at the finding aid that is linked there, and you see something listed that you'd like to see on stream, let me know, and we'll make it happen for you. So we're just now looking at a folder titled Federal Acknowledgement of Virginia Indian Tribes. And it's been a couple of very long days. It's easy to lose track. Indeed it is. All right, so in 2002, bills were introduced in both the House and Senate with strong support from the Virginia congressional delegation. Hearings were held in the Senate Indian Affairs Committee and the House Resources Committee in fall of 2002. 2003, the bill was revised. 2005 version of the bill received a successful hearing. And then Governor Tim Kaine and former Governor Mark Warner endorsed recognition of Virginia tribes. I believe these six, I'll double check, but I believe these 6 tribes were the very first federally recognized tribes in Virginia. Oh, and Hannah, you're the one that dropped the finding aid link. Thank you for that. I just noticed that it was you that did it. Let me just double check here. Okay, wow, okay. As of January 29th, 2018, Virginia has 7 federally recognized tribes. The federal legislation to provide recognition to them, or to 6 of Virginia's non-reservation tribes was developed and pushed over a period of 19 years. Hearings established that the tribes would have been able to meet the federal criteria for continuity and retention of identity as tribes, but they were disadvantaged by lacking reservations and mostly by racially discriminatory state governmental actions that altered records of Indian identification and continuity. In addition, some records were destroyed during the American Civil War and earlier conflicts. Yeah, lots of things. I'm trying to find out the date of when recognition actually happened, because we'll glance at this a little bit more. I was just trying to find out when they actually first, when the 6, you know, I bet I can find it if I go and click on the entry for the Monacan Indian Nation, which is the one that we're looking at today. Wow. I was dismissing that date because I thought it was too recent. The 6 tribes mentioned in this document first were granted federal recognition in 2018. And since then, the Pamunkey have also been added. But 2018, and it took 19 years of work to make it happen. Why are the tribes seeking federal recognition now? Why was recognition not sought before? Yes, Puddle Glove, 2018, which is why it took me so long to find the date, because I was expecting something at least 10 years earlier than that. As stated by Commissioner John Collier, I'm actually going to zoom in just a little bit more so that we're at page width. As stated by Commissioner John Collier, head of the Bureau of Indian Affairs in 1943, it is largely an historical accident that the tribes of Virginia are not recognized. The tribes have treaties which date back to the early 1600s, but these treaties were with the King of England, as represented by the governor of the Virginia colony. Most federally recognized tribes received recognition much later in the history of the country, after the federal government was organized. So part of the reason that Virginia Indigenous Nations were not recognized by the American federal government is that their treaties were with the King of England from before Virginia existed. Or rather, before the federal government existed. In very modern times, the Virginia Indians were unable to claim their Indian identity as a result of state-based racial integrity laws. Birth records, marriage certificates, and other legal documents pertaining to the Virginia Indians were altered by state officials to remove all reference to their Indian heritage. It was only in 1997 that, with support from Senator Allen as governor, state legislation was passed to help correct the records of the Virginia Indians. After the acknowledgement, After the acknowledgement by the state of this past injustice, the Virginia Indians began their quest for federal recognition. So why do Virginia Indians want to be federally recognized? I don't know the date of this document, but the latest dates that I've seen on it are in 2008 or 2007. So I'm guessing this is roughly 2008-ish. There's contact information at the bottom of the page, and I'm just going to cover that up. Federal recognition would allow the tribes to compete for educational programs and other grants open only to federally recognized tribes. Federal recognition would allow these tribes to repatriate the remains of their ancestors in a respectful and dignified manner. The Smithsonian, for example, has a large number of Virginia Indian remains, but is not required to repatriate them to non-federally recognized tribes. Federal recognition would provide health care for the elders of the tribes. Due to discrimination, many in the older generation worked at non-skilled, low-wage jobs or were self-employed. Therefore, they cannot afford health care on their limited incomes. Finally, federal recognition would place these tribes on an equal footing with other tribes in the United States by acknowledging their heritage and the right to be treated with the same dignity and respect as any other Indian tribes in this country. And just once again, because I know we had new people join, I am going to just toss into the chat here real quick a reminder about the language that we encounter. Hey, Portico, thank you for the historical terms note there. I do that not because any of the language that we're seeing is derogatory, but because the language around this population in general, there is a lot of disagreement over what is derogatory and what is not. And you will find that it can vary by individual, which terms they find offensive and which they don't. So this document is using the word Indian quite a lot. Many, many individuals find that term offensive and would prefer something like Native American or Indigenous. But there's a lot of variability. And so I just want to note, like, we're looking at these documents, they're not edited. I generally try not to say offensive words as I'm reading through. And in this case, the term is not being used in a derogatory way, and it is in fact being used by members of the community to write an informational document about themselves and the work that they are doing. Therefore, I am using the term. Imagine having to go through this just to be recognized. Yeah, it's a lot of work, geek outs. Organizations in support of federal recognition legislation for the Virginia tribes at whatever time this was were the Virginia Council of Churches, Jamestown Yorktown Foundation, Board of Supervisors of King William County, and there are apparently 3 of the tribes were actually located in that county. Virginia Pilot Newspaper of Norfolk, National Congress of American Indians, Alaskan Federation of Natives, and the Association of American Indian Affairs. So that is, let's see. And then we've got contact information for representatives. I'm not as concerned about having that appear on screen because these were public officials and these were their public contact addresses, although they are likely out of date by now. Ooh, we have a handwritten letter, or at least a draft of one. Presumably from the Reverend Baldwin Lloyd, although it is unsigned, and I do not know his handwriting, so I don't know for certain. Dear Senator Webb, this would be, I saw the name just a second ago. I know I did. Senator Jim Webb, who was a Democrat representing Virginia. Thank you for co-sponsoring and supporting federal recognition of Virginia's Native American tribes and nations. The Virginia Council of Indians have for 7 years sought recognition of their identity and rights as a people. The same people who inhabited our state when our creators first arrived. No, ancestors. Wow, it really did look like creators for a second, but it is ancestors. It was very strange terminology, especially for a reverend to have. So ancestors makes much more sense. The same people who inhabited our state when our ancestors first arrived, and who enabled those first settlers to survive and prosper. For whatever reason, our Indian brothers and sisters failed to be recognized by our federal government of their God-given identity. Now is a wonderful time to make right that grievous error. Senator Webb, you will honor and celebrate not only the heritage and presence of our Virginia Indians. So this appears to be a draft of a letter. You thought your handwriting was bad? This is really sloppy, but not difficult to read. Like, it looks a mess, but there's a lot of distinction between each letter. And compare this to some of the things that we've seen in other archival collections from decades before this, or centuries before this, where the letter forms of the lowercase letters are basically non-existent. And the lowercase letters are like straight lines or mild bumps. At least here, each letter is a letter. And so it makes it actually, it's not hard to read. Give it a couple years and many won't be able to read it. Cursive isn't taught in grade school anymore. I believe we are starting to get some of our undergraduate student employees who have never been taught cursive. I don't know necessarily whether we've had any of them here in our department, but I have heard from archivists who work in other higher education institutions that they're starting to have like freshmen, possibly by now sophomore, etc., students who come to work as student employees in the archives and have no idea how to read cursive because they were never taught. So we teach them. That's what happens. Like, if they don't know how, we teach them. And if we had a researcher come in who didn't know how to read it, we would either help them to learn how to read it or connect them with resources so that they could get it transcribed. General Convention Resolutions of the Episcopal Church. I'm skimming. I'm trying to figure out why this is in this folder, and I don't necessarily see why, except that it would be like referential information, but this is a bibliography. And we've got a couple other things here. I don't know how many Virginia state-recognized nations there are, or tribes there are. I was thinking that the number 13 existed somewhere, but I must have been badly overestimating. Wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There are 11 state-recognized tribes and presently 7 federally recognized. You had a classmate in college who couldn't read your notes because they were in cursive. I mean, I had a lot of classmates who couldn't read my notes, but that was because I wrote them in Pictish. They were in English, but they were in Pictish letters rather than Latin characters. Anyway, I was weird in high school. So here's a document about the 8 state-recognized tribes of Virginia. As I just checked, there are 11 state-recognized tribes today. So we have the Chickahominy tribe, coarse-pounded corn people. Chief Stephen R. Adkins. Their website is there if you want to take a look, chickahominitribe.org. The Chickahominy tribe is located in Charles City County, midway between Richmond and Williamsburg. When Jamestown was founded, the tribe lived in established villages along the Chickahominy River, from the mouth of the river near Jamestown to the middle of the current county of New Kent. Because of their proximity to Jamestown, the Chickahominy people had early contact with the English settlers, helping the settlers survive during their first few winters. Today, Samaria Baptist Church and the adjacent tribal center serve as a focal point for the community. There are approximately 875 Chickahominy people living within a 5-mile radius of the tribal center. With several hundred more living in other parts of the United States, each year a fall festival and powwow is hosted by the tribe, with attendance from all over the United States, particularly the East Coast. I'm just going to look. I do not know what the date is on this either. We do know that most of the stuff that I have seen about the Indigenous people and most of the stuff in this section of this collection seemed to be from the 90s and 2000s. And yeah, the student who processed the collection noted 1994 to 2010 predominantly, so sometime in that time range. The Pamunkey tribe, which is the 7th, was the 7th federally recognized. The history of the Pamunkey tribe, King William County, has been recorded by archaeologists, anthropologists, and historians, and dates back 10 to 12,000 years. 2 major treaties with the King of England in 1646 and 1677 established the Articles of Peace and a land base for the tribe, later referred to as a reservation. Listed as one of the 6 or more districts inherited by Chief Powhatan, evidence indicates that the Pamunkey district itself was the center among those core districts. In 1607, Powhatan moved east to Werawakamo in an effort to aid in the consolidation of his rapidly expanding chiefdom. Today, 34 families reside on the reservation, and many tribal members live in other parts of Virginia and all over the United States. The Pamunkey Indians are deeply involved in preserving their surviving culture and natural resources. The Pamunkey Indian Museum was built in 1979, and 3 documentary videos have been produced. Fishing, especially shad and herring, are an integral part of the tribe's economy. And for anyone who's curious, the reason why I'm able to read most of these indigenous names as easily as I can is I grew up in Virginia and I've heard most of them my entire life. Werowakamoko is a new one on me, though. I had not previously seen Werowakamoko. But Powhatan, Pamunkey, Chickahominy, these are all familiar words to me because they're the names of various things around where I grew up. Let's see. The Rappahannock tribe, where the tide ebbs and flows. So this is, the quotation there is, I'm assuming just based on placement, the translation. So where Chickahominy was coarse-pounded corn people, and Rappahannock is where the tide ebbs and flows. The Rappahannocks' first documented encounter with the English occurred in 1603 when Samuel Mace sailed into the Rappahannock River, killing the chief and taking men back to England. In the summer of 1608, John Smith mapped 14 Rappahannock villages on the north side of the river. English settlement in the Rappahannock River Valley began in the 1640s. After Bacon's Rebellion, they consolidated at one village, and in November 1682, the Virginia Council laid out 3,474 acres in Indian Neck, where their descendants remain today. The Rappahannocks incorporated in 1921. In 1998, they elected G. Ann Richardson, the first woman chief to lead a tribe in Virginia since the 1700s. Also in 1998, the tribe purchased 119.5 acres and established a land trust on which to build a housing development. A traditional dance group called the Rappahannock Native American Dancers and a drum group called the Mascapow Drum Group perform locally and abroad in their efforts to educate the public on Rappahannock history and tradition. And then we have the Upper Mattapony tribe. Let's get that fully on screen there. For centuries, because I'm going to have to squint and actually look down at the paper to read once we get down into where the text is overlapping the image. I'm guessing it doesn't show up very well on screen. For centuries, the ancestors of the Upper Mattapony people have lived in villages along the waterways of Virginia. The land known as Senecamoco, like neighboring tribes, they spoke the Algonquin language, and when the British came in 1607, they were prosperous people under the leadership of Chief Powhatan. John Smith's map of 1612 indicates the present location of the Upper Mattapony corresponds correctly with a village marked on his map as Pasoncac. In 1919, the Upper Mattapony built a small one-room schoolhouse, Sharon Indian School, which served them until 1952 when a modern brick structure was erected. The new school was closed in 1965 with the policy of desegregation and is now on the Virginia Landmarks Register and the National Register of Historic Buildings, the only public Indian school building still existing in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Today, Sharon Indian School is used for various events such as tribal meetings and cultural gatherings. The tribe owns land where many of their cultural events are held and have developed plans to develop a portion into a new tribal and cultural center. You can read it full screen. So I have it up on like a big 62-inch monitor on the wall, and I can't read it, but that is also on the other side of the room from me. And as noted previously, possibly before the raid arrived, the color is off on that monitor. So that could be part of why I struggled to read it up there. I'm actually enjoying, I don't know all of this information about all of the tribes, so I'm enjoying reading and learning about them. Chickahominy Indians Eastern Division. The Chickahominy Indians Eastern Division is located in New Kent County. European contact with the tribal ancestry of modern-day Chickahominy Indians and the Chickahominy Indian Tribe Eastern Division is recorded as early as 1607. They shared a history until the early 1900s when it was decided by the Eastern Chickahominy to organize their own tribal government due to the distance involved in attending tribal meetings in Charles City County. The tribe presently has 132 members, with about 67 members living in Virginia and 65 members living out of state. The tribe is proud of the 26 veterans with service in the armed forces since World War I. The tribe purchased 41.59 acres of land in 2002, where they plan to build a tribal center and museum. The hope to enrich and educate tribal members and the people of Virginia is a strong drive to move forward. Mildred Loving of Loving versus Virginia was Rappahannock. Oh, I did not know that. I knew she was a person of color. I did not realize she was a member of the Rappahannock Indian Nation. Thank you for, sharing that key squared. I know that was awkward, the drink in between, but I wanted to say thank you. So, Mattaponi Indian tribe, not to be confused with the Upper Mattaponi that we read about before. The Mattaponi Indian Reservation, which stretches along the borders of the Mattaponi River in King William County, dates back to 1658 as one of the oldest reservations in the country. The tribe traces its history to the great Chief Powhatan, father of Pocahontas, who ruled most of Tidewater, Virginia when Europeans arrived in 1607. Since the designation of the reservation, the Mattaponi tribe has maintained its heritage and many of its customs, despite strong pressures pushing toward assimilation with the mainstream culture. Shad have always been a staple in the Mattaponi diet and at the center of the Mattaponi culture. The hatchery and marine science facility supports the tribe's traditional work with American shad and has created several new programs that include fish tagging, water quality monitoring, and the development of educational materials about protecting water resources. Question. Also, Santa Man, I just realized it was you that posted about being able to read full screen. Hi, Santa Man. Sorry I didn't say hi earlier. Oh, and I just saw, if you're still here, thank you, Out for Justice and Benjenium for the follows. They're over here, not over there, and so I didn't notice them. But thank you very much all the same. I'm trying to get better about noticing those on this stream. Question for any of my viewers who are not from the United States, which I know there are a number of viewers that join from Europe and the Southern Pacific and locations outside the US. Oh, Iron Trout, thank you so much for gifting a sub to Lemon Twist. Lemon Twist, welcome in. Thank you for, welcome to the Rogues Gallery, my channel, and enjoy the sub. Greetings from Treaty 1. Cool. You didn't even expect to be recognized? As Santa Man, I try to say hello to everybody. Well, Benjenium, thank you for the follow and welcome. Where was my thought? For anybody who's not from the US, I'd be curious to know what you know about Indigenous Americans. Have you previously heard of Chief Powhatan? Have you heard of Pocahontas? This is presented in a way that assumes that the reader may not know who Chief Powhatan is, but that everyone knows who Pocahontas is. And I don't know how well known Pocahontas is outside the US beyond the Disney film. So I'd be curious to know from anybody who's not within the United States, what your background of knowledge is with regard to Indigenous American cultures and historical figures. The Monacan Indian Nation, the one that we've been sort of focused on today, and the one whose land Virginia Tech sits on. The Monacan Indian Nation is composed of about 1,400 people located in Amherst County near Lynchburg. Their culture in this region dates back more than 10,000 years, and the original territory of the tribe comprised roughly half of the state of Virginia, including most of the Piedmont region. The Monacan Nation is one of the oldest groups of indigenous people still existing in their ancestral homeland, and the only group of Eastern Siouan in the state. That is Siouans, if you can't tell from the screen, Eastern Siouan in the state. St. Paul's Episcopal Mission at Bear Mountain is the site of their ancestral museum and cultural center. Tribal members conduct a cultural education program, an elders program, and a tribal scholarship fund. They have obtained numerous grants to fund their projects and have established a unique partnership with Natural Bridge to build and maintain an interpretive village that interprets Monacan culture of the 1700s. And indeed, yes, Natural Bridge State Park, which is, I want to say like 30-ish minutes north of where Virginia Tech is located, has basically a living history museum with a functional farm that is built to demonstrate Monacan culture from the 1700s. I've worked with a couple of people from who actually have worked on that project at Natural Bridge. The Nansemond tribe, at the time of their earliest English contact in Virginia, the Nansemond tribe lived in several villages along the Nansemond River, centered near Chukatook in the current city of Suffolk. The arriving English raided the Nansemond villages in 1608, burning their houses and destroying their canoes to force them to give up their corn, thus beginning the open hostilities between the two communities. An increasing number of Europeans poured into the Nansemond area. Tribal members had to relocate their tribal lands and reservation on several different occasions, losing their last known reservation land in 1792. Most Nansemond Indians still live in the Suffolk-Chesapeake area. The members have a tribal museum and gift shop in Chukatook, and have plans for a tribal center/museum and living history area on ancestral lands along the Nansemond River. Let's see. Sample letter. Advocating. We'll take a look at that, read through that in just a second here. All right, so this is sometime 2000-ish, it looks like. It's undated because this is a template letter that this would have been intended for a letter writing campaign where you do like a get out, like a event to get the community to come out and just get all of them to send roughly the same letter to elected officials to advocate for a position on a policy. Honorable Congressman or Senator blank. So this is intended as a template that then the person would handwrite the actual letter sent, making adjustments. So they would say, Honorable Congressman, and the name. They wouldn't actually address it, Honorable Congressman or Senator. The Virginia Indian people need your help. The 8 state-recognized tribes of Virginia are currently in the process of seeking historic federal recognition through Congress with a bill sponsored by Congressman James P. Moran. We are asking for your support of this bill. The Commonwealth of Virginia formally recognized the Chickahominy, Eastern Division, Mattapony, Upper Mattapony, Monacan, Nansemond, Pamunkey, and Rappahannock. whose ancestors and cultural connections can be traced directly to Indian groups having lived in Virginia in 1607 at the time of first contact by the English and treaty documentation. The Commonwealth of Virginia, through House Joint Resolution number 754, passed in January 1999, asked the Congress of the United States to grant historic federal recognition to the 8 state-recognized Indian tribes in Virginia. We believe this issue to be one of human rights. The Virginia Indian people were the first to meet and the last ones to be federally recognized. The tribes have been slighted in the process due to Mr. Walter Plecker, state registrar for the Commonwealth in the early 20th century. The Indian people, through Plecker's campaign and the racial integrity laws, were victims of paper genocide. They were denied their inherent birthright as well fundamental freedoms. With 2007 just a few years away and this nation celebrating the 400th anniversary of this great country, it is sad to say that the descendants of the Indian people that met the colonists are not even recognized by the federal government. And asking for support for the act, the Thomasina E. Jordan Indian Tribes of Virginia Federal Recognition Act of 2000. So I grew up in Virginia, as I mentioned. I grew up in Northern Virginia. My elementary school was named for a Virginia tribe. I did not realize that while I was growing up, there were no governmentally recognized tribes in Virginia. And the narrative that was taught to us when I was a kid was just that there were no Indians left in Virginia, that they had all been forced westward. Not that they had moved westward of their own free will. We were not taught that. We were not taught that they had decided to move west, or that they had gone to make way for the new people who had come. We were taught that they were forced to move west, but we were taught that there were none left in Virginia. Which is probably part of why it took so long to get recognition that they didn't have state recognition until 1999, and they didn't have federal recognition until 2018, which was 3 years after I moved back to Virginia for this job. So, just wow. This is a letter dated April 11th, 2007. Wow. Look up the Trail of Tears if anyone's interested in the tribes being moved west. Yes, Iron Trout, thank you. I know there are efforts today to try and sanitize some of that history and recast it as the indigenous population being happy to move west and make way for their new European neighbors. And that there are children today that are learning that as the narrative, and who, by the time they get to college, will have never heard of the Trail of Tears. Also look up the Trail of Tears for an early example of a president rejecting the rule of law and the Supreme Court. Would that be Andrew Jackson? Yeah, okay. There's a musical about him. Bloody, Bloody Andrew Jackson. We have a big discussion in Germany about the display of Native Americans because of the representation in a new children's book using the fictional Apache Winnetou from the books of Karl May, and that they use stereotypes and are disrespectful. Where you live, there's an open-air theater where since 1952 they are playing Karl May stories. The Karl May Festival in Bad Segeberg. Your son is a member of the Comanche tribe, Iron Trout? I was not connected with any tribal nations growing up. I have Indigenous ancestors on both my father's and my mother's side. We didn't know about the ones on my mom's side of the family until my mom started doing genealogy research a couple of, like, maybe 5 or 10 years ago. The ones on my dad's side we knew more about. But so I have more recent Indigenous ancestors than I had known about, but I have no connection to any of the culture because that was not the culture that anybody in my family had been raised with for a couple generations before me. Being a member of a tribe and having that sort of cultural connection to that history, that seems really special to me. I'm going to read this letter. This is a letter. It looks like a letter that Baldwin Lloyd prepared to send out to multiple people. He's adopted, but you live in the general area of Oklahoma that the Comanche and Apache tribal reservations were set up. So you're inundated with tribal stuff. Yeah. And just being close enough to have that connection, because the tribal nations that would have been relevant to my family history don't exist out here in Virginia. They exist out back in the Midwest in like Iowa, Minnesota area where my family was from. But I grew up in Virginia. So even had there been sort of a cultural connection with them, I was geographically removed from there and probably would not have had the type of connection that I otherwise could have. But then again, my family just didn't really do anything with that portion of our heritage at all. Okay, April 11th, 2007, the date made me pause for a moment because it was 5 days before the shootings here at Virginia Tech. That is the date of this document. Dear blank, for over 30 years I have known the Monacan Indian people, although they have been only recognized by the state of Virginia as a tribe and nation for about 20 years. I have worked intimately with the members of St. Paul's Mission in Amherst County and the Lynchburg area for over 15 years and have followed closely the events, activities, and developments of the Monacan Nation. At long last, it appears very promising that the Monacans, along with the other Virginia tribes and nations, might achieve national recognition. Therefore, I am writing you to please write a letter / email or telephone your congressperson, and those especially on the enclosed list. They need to hear from you and from as many others as you may be able to share this information with. A history and pertinent information is also enclosed to help answer questions and supply what you need to know. Please urge passage of House Bill H.R. 1294. Again, let me emphasize, the time is right for us to act by sending literally rafts of letters and messages to our congressional leaders. We give a huge shove and can push this long overdue act of Congress right onto the crest of the wave that will wash federal recognition of Virginia Indians right onto the shores of Jamestown and inland all across this great land of ours and theirs. Then, the inclusion and acknowledgement of Virginia's first citizens will be the ultimate reason for our country's celebration of the 400th anniversary of the Jamestown settlement. This year of 2007 gives strong incentive for Congress to act. Let's help and give them our earnest encouragement to complete this work now. Yes, now is the time. Let our support arrive as Indian people from all over Virginia and their friends from other parts of the country march in Washington April 16th and 17th to both urge congressional support and to give thanks to those who in Congress lead the way to sponsor H.R. 1294. On April 18th, all the Virginia tribal chiefs will be testifying before Rahal's Congressional Committee. When the whole House acts, the Senate will follow their lead, so that it is important to contact senators as well. By our support, we too will be joining in this wonderful act of granting federal recognition to our Indian brothers and sisters in Virginia, and in their celebration of a long-awaited affirmation and acknowledgement of whom God created them to be and to love. Thank you for joining me and our Monacan friends to help achieve federal recognition. If you need further information or have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Wow. And Iron Trout, your wow was before it really hit the wow for me. I wonder how much of an effect it actually had. So we know, so this is the letter, this letter is saying, write your elected officials and tell them they need to pass this bill. And this letter was from 2007. And they were saying, this is the 400th anniversary of founding of Jamestown. Now is the right time. Pass it this year for this anniversary. And it didn't pass for another 11 years. And I have to wonder, if part of what made it not pass in 2007 was the unfortunate timing of the march happening on the 16th, 17th, and then the testifying happening on the 18th, because all of that, the 16th, 17th, and 18th, were flooded by coverage of the shootings here at Virginia Tech, which were the biggest school shootings that the nation had seen, and I believe are still one of, if not the largest school shootings in U.S. history. I'm just gonna double check that statistic. Oh, yeah, we're still number one. Because on the 16th, when they would have been trying to march in Washington to draw attention to this, all attention was on Blacksburg. And the shootings that killed 33 people and injured 17 more. So I have to wonder if that timing is part of why it didn't pass in 2007. I did not expect to find that connection when I was looking at these papers. That's, I think, kind of the first time that I've really ever talked directly about the events of April 16th on this program. We have a lot of material. I don't really know how to approach it on this program because it is raw. The Jamestown Covenant, I want to glance at real quick. See if I can figure out New Jamestown Covenant. This is not what I was thinking it was. So, because we are technically at stream end time, I did get started a couple of minutes late today, so I might just extend a teensy bit longer. Oh yeah. I wanted to take a look at this one that says Conversational Lakota, Indigenous American Prayers of Passing. So I don't know why those two are together. They seem possibly separate, and yet if they were filed together by the Reverend Lloyd, we would leave them filed together. So we've got some photocopies here of a little book titled Conversational Lakota. Narration for Lesson 1, produced by Bear. Copyright 1991. I do know that we also have some Navajo language resources and some Dine, which is, sorry, my brain is trying to recall. I will look. I remember the name of the language, not what the commonly known tribal name is. All right, so in the Michael Two Horses collection, we also have some Lakota language materials, but we also have a resource about the Navajo language, which is Dine. And then in this collection, it was mentioned that there were some materials in Lakota, Ojibwe, and Dakota. Let's learn a little Lakota. I don't know. We encourage the reader to become thoroughly versed with the Lakota conversation on the tapes. Before one attempts to learn the reading and writing, I don't have the tapes. I don't know if they're in the collection. I have not looked to see if there were media of that sort in the collection. Oh dear. Introduction to the Lakota alphabet. There are 5 vowels and each sound remains constant, except when sounded with a nasal ending. The vowels are A, E, I, O, U. A has the sound of ah, as in far, or, yeah, ah. E has the sound of A, as in they. I has the sound of E, as in marine. No, E, as in marine. O has the sound of O, as in go. U has the sound of U, as in rude. There are 6 letters not used in the Dakota alphabet. They're using Dakota and Lakota. Okay, so it says conversational Lakota, but they're also talking about the Dakota alphabet as well. There are 6 letters not used in the Dakota alphabet. They are F, J, R, Q, V, and X. And there are 6 consonants which have the same sound as in English. They are B, M, W, Y, D, L. D is used exclusively by Dakota speakers, and L is used exclusively by Lakota speakers. The very first foreign language that I learned way back in kindergarten was Hawaiian. And it also had fewer letters used than the 26 in the English alphabet. 9 consonants, each has 2 sounds. One sound is like the English sound, and the other is denoted by a diacritical mark, a dot or an apostrophe over or under the letter, which produces either an exploded sound, a guttural sound, or an aspirated sound. So C with what they're calling an apostrophe over it, which is I'm trying to remember the name of the actual diacritical mark. Agu? I can't recall for sure. But C with the accent on it is an aspirant, as in chin. C with the accent and the dot under it is exploded, as in cask. So ch versus k. G with no accent is good, like give, and G with a dot on top of it is a guttural sound not in English. Gi. He? I'm not sure. He. I would need the tape for that one because they didn't give me, apparently it's not in English, so they couldn't give an example word. H is like in he, and H with a dot is a surd guttural, not in English. Hupahu, possibly, I'm not certain. Interesting. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I never actually have known why those diacritics were in the language as written. It's interesting to me that all of these languages, like indigenous languages, we write in Latin characters. I would be very curious to know what their original lettering was. Did they not have lettering? They had writing, didn't they? I would have to look into the history. I don't know that I've ever been presented with indigenous writing. I assume they had writing. Which makes me want to know what their form of writing looked like. Because there are very different lettering schemes than the Latin characters that are used in English. You can see, if you look at Hebrew or you look at Arabic, you're not sure if they did. A lot of them were just spoken. Yeah, see, and my default assumption was that they must have had a form of writing, but they didn't necessarily. And I just don't know because we were never presented with any, in my schooling, I was never presented with examples of Indigenous American writing. But then again, there was a lot of stuff about Indigenous Americans I wasn't taught. So it's possible they did, and I just don't know it. And there were a lot of old cultures that had written languages. You look at, so Egyptians had hieroglyphs. Of course, the Babylonians had writing. There's Sanskrit. There's ancient Japanese and Chinese populations with their own forms of writing. If you go to the northern British Isles, Ireland, etc., you've got Ogham script. You've got, so many regions of the world had various different types of written languages that I would be somewhat surprised to discover that there weren't any forms of writing in any Indigenous American cultures. I would be very surprised to discover that there hadn't been. Hard to say because writing may have been destroyed. Yes, Subsilica. Writing may have been destroyed by colonizers. So the spoken language was preserved by elders who then, after years of efforts to exterminate the languages, worked with people to create documentation of the languages. In many cases, that's what happened. But that preservation was largely just somebody remembering and not necessarily written down somewhere. I think there were some Indigenous languages that did not have a formalized written component, but yeah, not an expert and would have to fact check. Yeah, indeed, there's that. But yeah, so I don't know for certain, but I would be very, very surprised to discover that there were none. I think it's much more likely that there probably were multiple forms of written language. Whether any written form of Lakota or Dakota survives, I don't know. But I would be very curious to see what it is, how it would be represented, not in Latin characters. Oh, you got an interesting link about it. Thank you. All right. This is from a site called quickadvances.com. I don't know anything about them. So before who are they? I don't see like an about page. Quick advices. Okay, I'm assuming this is community gathered information, sort of like Quora. Not a ton of info, but interesting. Did any Native American tribes have a written language? No native writing system was known among North American Indians at the time of first European contact, unlike the Maya, Aztecs, Mixtecs, and Zapotec's of Mesoamerica, who had native writing systems. The Cherokee, which Native American tribe created their own language? Cherokee. Sequoyah was one of the most influential figures in Cherokee history. He created the Cherokee syllabary, a written form of the Cherokee language. The syllabary allowed literacy and printing to flourish in the Cherokee Nation in the early 19th century and remains in use today. So the first known, according to this, the first known Native American written language was created in 1821 by the Cherokee Nation. Interesting. Still, there are so many Indigenous American nations that I still find this hard to believe. Because there were so many. And when people talk about Native Americans, at least here in the US, they tend to forget that there were indigenous populations in what is now Canada as well. Which means there are even more than we tend to think there were. I just find it really hard to believe that none of them would have a written form of language, especially with Mesoamerican nations having one. So that's just personal opinion. I have not done the research, but Ooh, Wikipedia article. Over 1,000 indigenous languages are spoken by the indigenous peoples of the Americas. These languages cannot all be demonstrated to be related to each other and are classified into 100 or so language families, including a large number of language isolates, as well as a number of extinct languages that are unclassified because of a lack of data. Writing systems. While most indigenous languages have adopted the Latin script as the written form of their languages, a few languages have their own unique writing systems after encountering the Latin script, often through missionaries, that are still in use. All pre-Columbian indigenous writing systems are no longer used. A lot of tribes had their own sign language. They wouldn't share a spoken language, but they could communicate with sign language. Leon, thank you for that. Yeah, I definitely have heard about indigenous sign language, but that had not come to mind in this context, but I'm glad you brought it up. The ones listed on Wikipedia, so it notes that there were some writing systems, but that after European missionaries showed up, those writing systems basically died out and are not currently used. all pre-Columbian, meaning before Columbus, writing systems are no longer used. So the Quipu, the Olmec, the Zapotec, the Epi-Olmec, I should say where they're from. The Quipu, who are from the Andes mountains in South America. The Olmec, also Central American. Zapotec, Oaxaca region of Mexico. Epi-Olmec, Isthmus of Tehuantepec, which is Central America. The Abaj Tacalic script, and I'm not going to butcher that one, so I'm just going to let it lie there. From southern Guatemala, the Mayan civilization, Mixtec, Aztec. So the Maya, Mixtec, Aztec are all Central or South America. Then you have one that I definitely cannot pronounce. I will butcher this. Comquechwicasicli. Nope. Comquechwicasical. I butchered it. I said I would butcher it. This was the Micmac. Micmac is the language. I butchered the name of the writing system. They were from Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and New Brunswick in Canada, North America. But that writing system was in use from the 17th to the 19th century, so after the time the Europeans arrived. And then you've got the Cherokee, whose writing system came about in the 1820s. Algonquin, the Inuktitut and Inuinnaqtun people, the Athabascan languages, writing system created in the 1840s. Central Alaskan Yupik, 1900 to present. Diuka, uncertain. From Suriname and French Guiana, 1910 to present. The Osage Nation, who created their own alphabet in 2006. But yeah, everything on this list that is from before the arrival of Europeans to the Americas was from Central or South America and is no longer used. So that's very interesting to me. If you look at the native ruins in New Mexico and Arizona, it'd be pretty impressive if they had made those cities with no written language. Yeah, I'm really surprised that basically we have no documentation of any North American indigenous written languages from before the arrival of Europeans. There were a lot of nations. Think about how big North America is. That's just surprising to me, when there are written languages from literally everywhere else on Earth, except for Antarctica. One article stated no native writing system was known among North American Indians at the time of the first European contact. That is amazing to me, but apparently we don't have any documentation of it. Depends on how you define written. We know Quipu was knotted rope patterns to communicate information rather than script. Has yet to be fully translated. Yeah, so maybe they had something and we just don't know it or didn't recognize it. Yeah, and like Ogham script. It's literally just, you have a line and you've got a pattern of shorter lines branching off of it at right angles, or sometimes written at not quite right angles, but it's the pattern of how many on one side of it and how many on the other that forms the letters, that like forms the words. And it is, yeah, hash marks. Thank you, Iron Trout. And if you look at it, it doesn't look like writing, but it is. So maybe there was something that we just didn't recognize as writing, but it feels like in 400 years somebody would have noticed. But we discover new things all the time. Anyway, I have run significantly over now, almost an extra half hour, and I do need to wind up the stream. So I had tons of fun. I think this was a very interesting stream today. I had a good time looking at the materials that we found. We barely scratched the surface of even just this portion of the Baldwin Lloyd papers, but learning about the federal recognition of Virginia Indigenous tribes, that to me was really fascinating, and so I'm glad that we spent so much time on it. They just recognize the tribes, so why would they know anything about them? Indeed, Iron Trout. Coming up next week, I have a stream. My computer is going to sleep. I have a stream about electric vehicles using the H.H. Skinner papers. And these papers are not from this century. They are not from the latter half of last century. We're going to talk about electric vehicles in the 1920s next week with the H.H. Skinner papers. So hopefully you'll join me then. I'm going to go ahead and set up a raid because I need to pack up to go home. And we could do fish, but I've been having fun saying hi to Stephen. Stephen is live with his wonderful tiny hats, playing some Core Keeper, and I think we're going to pop over there. So say hello when you get there to Stephen Joy's. And if you ask, you'll probably find out that there are a number of librarians somewhere in that chat. I know they're in that community. Anyway, thank you all for joining me. Hopefully I see you come next week or for a future stream. Thank you all. Stay curious and keep exploring history.